was really nervous to kind of sit down in front of a camera and try and talk about the art. So nervous that it bled kind of into my dreams, and I dreamt that we were kind of figuring out how to talk about this. And what I was really nervous about was having my fingers on camera. If you're going to film me cutting things out, and I was so nervous because my fingernails are they're like fucked up. You know, I pick them a lot. It's where a lot of my anxiety lives itself out. And in the dream I had with you, you were like, well, what if instead of, you know, cutting out all these images and gluing them back together, all that extra work, like what if you just ripped your fingernails off and that was the art? It's essentially the same thing. And I was like, I don't know, that seems like a weird thing. But then, you know, the dream turned into a nightmare where suddenly it was like, it was famous, everyone loved it. But like, I was like, oh, this is just my nasty little fingernails. And suddenly like, that's the art. I think it's just so easy to be overwhelmed with anxiety. There's so much input that, yeah, it feels really good to just kind of like tune everything out and rip off a hangnail. And I think it's the same energy. It's the same kind of incessant need to get in there and kind of like not take no for an answer from the material in front of you, but it's so much more, it's productive. It's something I can step back and be like, I am actually like more myself than less of myself. Like I can see myself in this. I've learned something from this anxiety as opposed to just kind of let it take hold of me or like scarify my fingertips. Initially, when I set out to make a piece, I will kind of go through all my source material. I've been working a lot from, I have these giant anthologies of old Life magazines. The first step is kind of going through and just pulling pages. And that could be for one little thing on the page, or it could be for like the whole background, but kind of trying to move quickly. And it's through that, it's also like the process of sort of bathing yourself in everything you have. And the more you inundate yourself with everything that's there, the more able you are to start making choices about what you want to pull from it. So that first starts with pulling the pages. And then from there, you can pull out specific pieces. Now, this is where you kind of got to be intentional about the choices, because it's like if you cut the whole thing out, you've completely removed it from its background, and maybe you wanted that background. It's about cutting enough out that you're starting to move towards something, but leaving enough in that you haven't, you know, ruined any opportunities down the road. So that's like the next step, is that kind of that balanced cutting. For me, I do that until I have maybe like 10 or 15 pieces that excite me and there's some connection. Now, they're not all going to be connected, but that's like where the building starts, where I get the glue out and I start to put things together. Honestly, kids that play with Legos and then like break down the set and just build their own thing, I feel like they really would understand. It's a very similar process. You source, you observe, you put together, you repeat. I think the moment when it starts to click and when I feel like I have something that I kind of need to keep going with in a piece is when you put things together in such a way where the cohesion is so crisp, I guess. Like I feel like I didn't even do it myself. I was just happenstance there to rearrange the images. But the moment in which I feel like I got something and I just have to follow it through until the end happens, I'd say, very early on, with maybe like 2 or 3 different connections that just feel so crisp that they either lend itself to like a theme I want to develop, or just kind of like a trick that I want to repeat and explore. I've found myself gravitating more to certain types of images. A lot of them come from advertisements. You know, from its inception, its creation, like it is an image that's sort of designed to manipulate the person looking at it. So it's one in which I feel fine to manipulate the image. I can take from it what I want. It was created to take something from me. I think it's a way to kind of like make fun of the idea that we're that easy to manipulate. And I think in a lot of ways, like, it's really fun to, like I reclaim them. To speak of intentions, I feel like it's also like to speak of lack of intentions, which is what I've been trying to like think of with this. It's like, where does the energy come to get this in the weeds with it? Because I feel like that's what's happened. It's like, there's sort of no limit to how complex I'll try and be. There's not much opportunity to sort of take things out, or paint over and start again. Like everything connects and is dependent on everything else. And then when I'm done with it, it's like, the idea is that there's so much movement in it that it kind of might hit you as some type of three-dimensional object. I started collaging first in high school, and it was like actually a class. And there was this one teacher, Todd Bartell. He would start the class with these very big statements. One of them was, collage is the most important form of communication because it encompasses all forms of communication. The other one is 1 + 1 = 3. And the concept there is that, like, by bringing two things together, you're creating a connection. That connection is like a whole third thing unto itself. And I remember kind of hearing these things, and they were funny, like they were very lofty. Like, how could you be so serious about scrapbooking? It's like we're cutting and putting together images, but he really brought a lot of passion to it. I ended up taking the class twice, and it really is the only kind of creative process that's stuck with me since, forever. I've never kind of been able to get through any chunk of my life without having some kind of station in my house or office where I'm cutting and regluing images. I'm like a borderline hoarder, but I think I try enough to arrange it to at least look like there's enough intention around, like you have enough clutter with just enough structure that it kind of makes sense and it's legible in some way. I think it's kind of like a way of taking the same practice off of the page a little bit, like seeing where you can build these connections that are just sort of visual or physical with like things, objects. So the big shelf of toys in my house, I feel like, is sort of my masterpiece of that effort. It starts with these little ceramic figurines that my mother would buy for me when I was like a small child when she'd go away on trips. Okay, I got these very sentimental little clay figurines. They're also, I am prowling on eBay for good deals on like collectors' action figures. And if you look closely too, it's like trying to kind of do some of the same trickery. Like, it's not paper that you can bend and manipulate and obscure and fold, but like just arrangements. Bringing all of these things together, and the only thing that they really have in common is that everything has some kind of it's spiritually imbued with something, even if it's just your imagination. I think it's very human to kind of have that relationship with a wide range of objects. However the object found you in your life, or whatever it illuminates in terms of your relationships to other people's lives, like everything has something to it. I kind of make them very abrasive and big, and I feel like that's part of it. Is like, they come from nervous energy, so they should kind of feel like that, but hopefully within that picture you find something also pleasing, because that's always there.